This is the vulnerability assessment of Cody Affleck systems. My name is Brandon Lee. This is ISA 4220, fall semester of 2018. For methodology, I did a vulnerability assessment on two servers using the ZenMap and Nessus scan tools. The servers are Windows Server 2012 standard, 64-bit at the IP address of 192.168.2.11. and Ubuntu Server 17.10 LTS at the IP address of 192.168.2.10. This was all done on the Kali pods, and the ZenMap would run the IP address to see if the services were running correctly, and the Nessus scan tool would scan for any vulnerabilities that were present. The Nessus scan tool would then rank these vulnerabilities and give recommended remediations and fixes. Here we have the Nessus ranking, which uses the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, version 3.0, and is measured by the qualitative ratings shown here. The ratings are none, low, medium, high, and critical. The color associated with them are blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. And their CVSS score ranges from, for none is 0 to 0.9, for low it's 1 to 3.9, medium from 4 to 6.9, and high starts from 7 to 8.9, and critical from 9 to 10 points. For the assessment findings, we first have, I ran into was the Linux IP table chain. The chain input policy was set to accept and was not configured properly. The input policy should be set to drop, and rules have not been set for the required services either, such as HTTPS, POP3S, SMTPS, IMAPS, DNS, database, and SSH. Linux had three medium vulnerabilities. They were SSL certificate cannot be trusted, and this certificate couldn't be trusted mainly because it was self-cert and it wasn't from a public certificate authority. Next we have self-signed certificate. This is also unrecognized due to it being a self-signed certification, and for it to be a self-signed certificate, it's untrusted and would not be recognized by a public host. Usually they would run into security alerts. Next we have DNS server cache snooping, remote information disclosure. This remote DNS server is susceptible to cache snooping attacks. Attackers could be able to gain information on what the user is doing with other online services, and find web surfing patterns. They could track your email conversations and even the user's location. Next we have one low vulnerability named SSL Anonymous Cipher Suites supported. This one supports the use of anonymous SSL ciphers. This vulnerability allows the administrator to set up a service that encrypts traffic without the use of having to configure a SSL certificate, which could leave it vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attack. These SSL vulnerabilities do affect the HTTPS, SMTPS, and POP3S services and could lead to exploits to the users. As I mentioned before, the DNS vulnerability could exploit users by tracking their movements. Continuing on with assessment findings, we have the Windows server, which has 4 medium vulnerabilities. The first two are the same as the Linux vulnerabilities. SSL certificate cannot be trusted, and SSL self-signed certificate, which is also not trusted by the public host. Next we have the SSL certificate signed using weak hashing algorithm, and this is a SSL certificate in the certificate chain which has been signed using a weak hash algorithm. And since it's using a weak and outdated hashing algorithm, these can be easily exploited and are vulnerable to collision attacks. Next we have SSL medium strength cipher suites. These cipher suite encryptions are not strong and uses key lengths between 64 bits and 112 bits. If an attacker was on the same physical network, it could be easily exploited. These SSL vulnerabilities do affect these services, HTTPS, SMTPS, and POP3S services, and could lead to exploits. For the firewall recommendation, to fix this, I recommended implementing a drop rule. The first rule that we would need to make is the sudo iptables -a input -m contract -c state ct state established related -j accepts. By adding this rule, the connections we make are matched, accepted, and pulled out of the chain before reaching any drop rules. Next would be to add the rules needed and their respective ports, encrypted ports, 443 TCP HTTPS, 995 TCP POP3, 465 TCP SMTPS, 143 TCP IMAPS, 53 TCP DNS, 5432 TCP Postgres, 22 TCP OpenSSH. Going on to remediations and recommendations. For the Linux server SSL certificate cannot be trusted, my recommendation is to purchase a proper certificate since the generated one is not trusted. Same goes for the SSL self-signed certificate vulnerability. I suggest that you get a proper certificate from a public certificate authority. And DNS server cache snooping remote information disclosure, my recommendation is to restrict recursion to your own IP address range or disable it completely. Another recommendation is to contact the vendor of the DNS software to fix the issue. Next we have SSL anonymous cipher suite supported. To address the anonymous and medium cipher suites, I recommend reconfiguring the affected application to avoid the use of weak ciphers. Next, for the Windows Server remediations and recommendations, the same SSL certificate cannot be trusted and self-signed certificate. I recommend the same thing by purchasing a proper certificate from a public certificate authority. For the SSL certificate signed using weak hashing algorithm, I would just contact the certificate authority to have the certificate reissued. Next we have the SSL medium strength cipher suite supported. Make sure to keep Windows updated with the latest security patches and do not sign digital certificates with MD5 since it is outdated. Here are my references, and thank you for watching.